There are so many closers and setters who apply to get placed by SalesMatch, but what most of them don't realize is that the vast majority of people who apply do not even make it through the application process. And that's no marketing gimmick, that's the standard we hold ourselves to, and so should you. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why we are so selective, why it matters in the first place, and how you can use our vetting process to find the very best reps for your business, and what it really takes, what it really means and takes for you to get placed by SalesMatch. Now, the reason we are so freaking ruthless with our vetting process when we vet closers and setters for businesses is that founders aren't hiring us to send them warm, empty bodies. They are actually trusting us with their pipeline and often their reputation as well. We're talking about inbound leads that cost anywhere from $150 to $400 each, and offers ranging anywhere from $2,500 all the way up to $50,000 plus. And founders that are doing $25,000, $50,000, even $1 million a month, where one bad closer or sitter can tank the founder's growth. So it goes without saying that founders really do place their trust in us so that we can have a ruthless vetting process so that we can find the best closers and sitters for their business. Now, if we mess that up, we don't just cost somebody money, we cost them momentum. And in business, you specifically watching this know that momentum is everything in business. And once your momentum starts tanking, well, it's a slippery slope you can go down. Now, the first step we're going to look at is actually the application filter. So that is step one in our actual vetting process, is the application filter. So let's start there and just write this down, app filter. And let's talk about this for a second. So in the application filter, it is so important that you add a ton of friction. Why? Well, think about it in your funnel generally, right? The more friction you apply in your funnel, the less candidates you are going to get, or the less leads or prospects you're going to get, right? But what happens is that the more friction you apply, yes, your volume will decrease, but your actual quality of the prospects you're talking with will actually increase. So the same thing applies when you are hiring, closers, setters, MDRs, and actually anybody in your company. The harder you make the application process, the better it is going to be, right? Because here's the thing, a lot of people are lazy. You do not want a lazy rep to sell for you. You do not want a lazy rep or a lazy setter for all when they need to have speed to lead and contact leads super quickly. You do not want to have a lazy person in that position. So how do we weed out all those lazy people in the recruiting process? Well, you are stacking friction, because the top reps know their worth and they are going to keep grinding through that application process until they get to the actual point where they actually get an offer from the business. Now, again, we are not specifically interested in resumes at all. When we are vetting, candidates for businesses, we want actual tangible proof. And some of the things we look for is real sales experience, right? Where have they sold before? Or are they just coming over from corporate into high ticket sales? Not really going to be a good fit. Or, what have they sold before? We want to see real tangible sales experience. We're not dealing with beginners at all. So that's very important for us. We want to see real sales experience for years and years prior. Now, the second thing we want to look for here is industry alignment, right? So are they in the informational space? Are they in the educational space? Are they in SaaS? Are they in service? What industry are they in? And a common misconception here is that you need to hire a closer or a sitter that has worked in the exact same industry before. I can tell you out of personal experience, the best reps that we have found were not actually in the same industry. They were working in a different industry. Now, when I say different industry, it's still high ticket sales, but they might have been, working for a SaaS company as a closer, and now they're coming over and selling e-com or whatever it is, right? So industry alignment is not that important unless there's a huge educational piece to your product or your service and so on and so forth. Because again, if there's a massive education piece in terms of what the knowledge the closer needs, the onboarding time, the ramp up time is going to be much longer. So that is a selective case where industry alignment really matters. But generally, industry alignment doesn't matter as much, although they need to be selling in similar price points, right? Which is very important. Now, the third thing we look for in the application process is any signs of initiative, right? We don't just want copy and paste, filler answers in here and there. We want original answers, right? And especially, this day and age where, AI is such a big thing, it is so important that you vet people that are answering with AI. And this can go both ways, right? If you actually want your closer and setters to be useful in AI, whether that's, ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, if you want them to excel in that, that's okay. However, we have found that setters and closers do not really mess with, AI that much. Now, compared to somebody like your executive assistant, well, that person is probably using AI or should be using AI on a daily or weekly basis, which is more important, right? Now, the fourth point we look for here is, did they actually answer the application questions? Which is really important, that when you have your application out there, whether you're running ads like we do sometimes to attract an outsourced pool of closers or setters, you want to have application questions and custom questions, right? You don't want just generic questions out there, and you specifically want to see, the first thing you want to look for is, did they answer all of my questions, right? If they did not answer or they left out some questions, get rid of them immediately. Those are going to be the tire kickers, okay? Now, the next thing we look for here is, did they actually follow instructions, right? Because a lot of times when the way we vet closers and setters and the way we bring them in is by having a lot of friction, right? So for example, we will run ads with instructions for them to submit their video interview, right? You generally when people are recruiting and companies are recruiting, they want to look at resumes. Guess what? We do not necessarily want to examine the resume, although it is a requirement to submit so we can go through it. But what we are looking for here is maybe a summary of the resume, right? So we can have application questions there, and then we can also have a link where they have to submit a video interview, right? And we provide them with the questions, or just a summary. For another question example is, provide me with a summary of your resume within 120 seconds, right? Submit your video here, right? And what you will notice is that those people that do actually submit the video interview, those are going to be your highest quality candidates, right? Because they have jumped through hoops, they have jumped through hurdles, and now they are there and they can show to you that they actually care about the position and they actually want the position. And those folks that are not applying for or going through and submitting a video interview, guess what? You don't want to work with them in any way, because they are going to be your laziest candidate, and it's not always going to be the best fit, right? Now, you're probably sitting there wondering, Craig, well, this is all good and well. What are some of the red flags that I need to look out for when people are applying? And keep in mind, again, this is in the app filter, the application stage, right? This is stage 1. Now, some of the red flags, is that if somebody comes in and they say, oh, I just want to learn, right? That is an absolute instant disqualifier. Here at SalesMatch, and if you're watching this, whether you've used our services before or not, regardless, keep yourself to this, right? You have to set a standard within your team, and every single hire should raise the bar of your company. Meaning that if you have, 3 closers and you bring in a 4th closer, that 4th closer should kick the top 3 closers' ass, right? That is just facts, right? Because if you keep lowering the bar when you hire people, and you don't hire people that are better than the people you currently have within your company, you are lowering the bar, and you're just not going to grow your company with really good people that you need to take you to the next level, right? Now, the next red flag here is if there's absolutely no proof of past experience or sales calls. Immediately, that's an instant disqualifier, right? Why? Because they should have proof, right? They should have proof of their past experience, sales calls recordings, right? Maybe KPI sheets, right? They should have some sort of proof that they have worked either in the industry or in a similar industry as your specific offer. Now, the next red flag that actually goes hand in hand here is when they have no sales metrics, no call volume experiences, or alternatively, they have vague answers about past positions or offers they closed for. Now, a little hint here, if they have vague answers, always dig deeper, right? Find that pain point, dig a little bit deeper, and find out exactly why they were vague, right? Did something go wrong in the past position? And if they give you vague questions, dig a little bit deeper, and this is specifically in the interview process, and we'll get to that here in a second. I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but dig a little bit deeper into as to why they were vague about that. What happened in their last job? Why did they leave their last job? Right? Figure out, because there's a reason why they are, wanting to close or wanting to set for your business. So figure out exactly why that is, right? Because a lot of times when you dig a little bit deeper, you will find some dirt on them from their previous job, and that might or may not affect your decision to hire them. Now, the next red flag that you can look out for here is if there's no context on offer size, lead types, or close rate. Real experienced closers or setters will know their numbers inside and out. They will know where they get get their leads from, what their close rate was, what the offer size was, what their sales cycle was like, right? That is very, very, very important. And the fifth red flag here that we can talk about, or actually sixth red flag, is that if you are selling a high ticket product or service, and if you're watching this video, you probably are, if they do not have any high ticket experience, that can be a red flag in itself, unless they have done, sold an offer maybe that doesn't qualify as high ticket, for example, $1,000 or $500, but they have sold a ton of them. In that case, some of the similarities between low ticket and high ticket can pass over with closers and setters specifically. Now, let's move into the second phase here of the actual vetting process, which is the video submission. So step number one is going to be the application filter. And if they make it through the application filter, they are actually going to be moving through to the video submission phase. So let's just jot that submission. Excuse my handwriting. But the next phase here is the video submission phase. So we briefly talked about this, right? But this is exactly where most applicants actually get weeded out. Why? Because sales is actually a communication game, right? And if you cannot clearly articulate who you are, what you've done, and why you're great, then there's absolutely no chance that you're going to be closing high ticket deals. That is super, super, super important, right? And like I mentioned before, the entire video submission process, you want to add friction. So you'll have your application, right? And inside your application, you'll also have the questions that you want them to answer in the video interview, right? So even before they get on an interview with you, you are receiving a video that you can see and evaluate things such as, what is their eye contact like and their camera presence, right? What is their tone, their pacing, their energy control? There is so much that you can see over a video, because again, if they do not have good tone, if they are not, good on camera, guess what? If you're doing online high ticket sales, how can you expect them to close really well if they did not even have, a good camera, a good mic, and so on and so forth when you are, requiring that video submission, right? Other things that you should look for in this video is confidence without ego. That's super, super important. A lot of top salespeople do and are egotistical. That is actually true, and I've seen it so many times over and over and over again. And that becomes a problem with the culture later on. And that's why it's so important that you actually need to evaluate and separate confidence versus ego, okay? The next thing you can look for, like I mentioned before, is did they follow instructions? Are they good on camera? What does their mic and camera look like? What does their background look like, right? Or is there a bed in the background that is unmade? Or are they in a professional setting and taking this seriously and taking this job interview very, very seriously, okay? Reps with insane resumes can and will actually fail here. Why? Because they couldn't show up with presence, or they couldn't meet any of the above mentioned criteria, which is super, super important. Now, let's move through to step 3 of the vetting process over here. So that is actually going to be the mock objection handling, right? So let's just write this down, objection handling. Now this is super, super important, right? So as you can see here, they're going to start with the application filter, where we're going to apply a lot of friction. Then they're going to submit a video interview, and then after that video interview, if we like them, now we're going to move through to a live call with them, where we're hopping on a Zoom and we're actually testing things such as objection handling, right? Because again, once they actually get on the call with you, this is where we have to evaluate how good they are, right? And this is actually where we're going to simulate real pressure in an interview, right? Things such as, besides the basic questions that we're going to ask them and reiterate their resume and so on and so forth, what we're really looking for here is objection handling, right? We're going to put them through a mock call after we've done, the resume review, ask them about their ex-bosses, ask them about their ex-position, why they left their last job, what have they sold, what is their sales cycle, all of those good questions. We're going to move on to objection handling, right? And we actually want to evaluate and see how they respond to when people say, it's too expensive, or I need to talk to my spouse, or I've been burnt before, right? It's again, we're not going to be looking for canned responses. What we're going to be looking for here is things such as frame control. Can they control the frame of the conversation well, right? And we're going to put them through their paces here, because if it's always, entertaining when a salesperson is interviewing a salesperson, because you kind of know the techniques and the frame and the framing and how it should be framed, right? So if you can throw them off their tracks in terms of framing, and if they can bring it back on track, then you actually have a good closer here. The next thing I want to look for here is, are they actively listening, or are they just kind of concentrating on themselves, right? Because that's a big no-no. A lot of closers with egos will always think about themselves, always think about them instead of the prospects, right? And it is so important that we have to maintain active listening when we are closing, because you want to hear the prospect wants to feel heard and understood as well. Now moving on, what are the other things that we look for here? Some things are such as emotional intelligence is very important, and adaptability under pressure, right? If we throw a curveball at them, right, how do they actually handle that? How do they handle pressure essentially? Now, the best reps can dance in fire and never lose control. That's exactly what we're looking for, and that's exactly what we want. Now, the fourth step to this interview process here is actually going to be internal matching, fit scoring, and checks. So I'm just going to write down here checks. But essentially what this entails is if you pass step 1, which is the app filter, you pass step 2, which is the video submission, you pass step 3, which is the actual live interview and objection handling. Now the next step is actually still going to be super important, and this is where most reps or most employers kind of just say after the actual interview process, they kind of wrap up their hands and say, okay, well, I like them, so let's just hire them. No, you actually have to do your fit scoring, you have to do your checks, you have to do your internal matching, right? Because it's not just about passing, it's about being the perfect match. And this is where our digging really starts. You're probably sitting there and asking yourself, well, Craig, what are we looking for here, right? Well, we're going to be looking at the types of offers they've sold, right? Their comfort zone with price points, their selling style, are they aggressive or are they consultative, right? It's very important. We do not want somebody that's super aggressive. That's old school sales. People do not like salespeople. So salespeople have to be consultants in this day and age because they are actually trying to consult and help somebody. That is key. You have to be able to help somebody with your product and service. Otherwise, you are actually just going to be aggressively selling them, which is what you don't want. Now, the fourth thing we're going to look for is how they actually handle warm inbound leads versus outbound DMs, right? How do they interact, right? And the way we're going to do this is by asking them for past calls, past messages, past scripts that they've used, right? And again, the final thing we're going to look for here, which is so damn important, is, if ex-employer's information is available, guess what? We're calling them. We want to find out why they left their last job. Were they a good hire? What happened that they're not working there anymore? This is going to give us valuable information, and this is probably, in my opinion, the most important thing is calling ex references, right? Because you're going to find out exactly who that person is, because on the call, they're going to put their best foot forward. They're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, right? But if you call ex bosses and ex references, right, they're going to tell you the absolute truth, which is so important. Well, let me be hyperly clear as well. It's not just because reps are bad people, it's because the standard we use here is different. We expect sales metrics such as close rate, show up rate, cash collected, proof of prior performance, recorded calls or training footage, cultural fit, and hunger, not entitlement. Okay, so you'd be shocked how many reps fumble basic stuff such as showing up late. And I can tell you right now, if a rep shows up late to an interview, boot them immediately. You do not, if they cannot show up early to an interview, how do you think they're going to handle your leads that you are paying top dollar for, right? If they do not come prepared to the interview, guess what? We're booting them. They have to be excited. They have to be willing to, put themselves out there, do the research, be prepared for that interview, right? Because again, if there's not much effort from their side, right, how are they going to treat your brand, your leads, your company, right? That is super important. Now, again, if you're a business owner watching this and you're wondering, are these reps actually different that are placed by Sales Match? And the answer to that is absolutely. We just don't pick anybody. We protect your brand like it's ours. Most recruiting companies are just resume shufflers. We are and have a vetting machine, and we're obsessed with quality, not magic. And again, it's not magic. It's not, fugazi. There's an actual sales process and a system, standards, and so on and so forth that we uphold ourselves to. Why? Because we are and want to be the best in the industry, and we want to be the go-to company when you are looking for closers and setters. So with that being said, if you are in the market and you are searching for elite closers or setters, but you don't want to go through this ruthless kind of vetting process, we can do all of this for you. So if you're interested in that, you can find the link down below, click a call or click the button, schedule a call with us, and let's see how we can work together. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.